Aradhana, I would request you to please introduce and start the webinar.
Sure, Mikla. Good morning, everyone. GHRDC welcomes you to today's Women's Day special webinar honoring women leaders and visionaries series titled From Classroom to Civil Services, The Real Journey. Thank you, everyone, for taking out time and joining in with us today. We are delighted to have with us an expert. On behalf of GHRDC team, I welcome our distinguished guest today. GHRDC, as many of you would be aware, is a 28 years old education research firm dedicatedly working in the education sector in the area of ranking, training, mentoring, and research with the sole aim of working on upgrading the quality of education in various sectors and benchmarking the best of the educational institutions in our country. Today's discussion will revolve around the transition students make from classrooms to competitive examinations and public services. It will highlight the challenges, preparation strategies, mindset shifts, and perseverance required to navigate the civil services journey successfully. We'll now invite our distinguished speaker to talk about this exciting topic. Also, I would request our wonderful attendees to type in your questions for our speaker in the chat box. Now, I would like to introduce our eminent speaker for today, Ms. Aparna Sinha. Ms. Aparna Sinha is an economic advisor in the Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. Ms. Sinha is an officer of the Indian Economic Services of 1999 batch with extensive experience in economic policy, international trade, and financial sector related matters. Ms. Sinha has served in various capacities in Government of India. She began her career in the Regional Evaluation Organization of the Union Planning Commission, Chennai, now Niti Aayog, where she was responsible for the evaluation of various central sector schemes. She has worked for many years in the Department of Commerce, Ministry of Commerce and Industry of the Government of India, handling services trade negotiations in both bilateral and multilateral agreements. She served as counselor at the Permanent Mission of India to the World Trade Organization Geneva during 2017 to 2020. Currently, she serves as economic advisor in the Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, where she handles financial sector related issues including digital economy and fintech, financial stability, cybersecurity, financial sector and legislative reforms, financial inclusion, and crypto sector related issues. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. And we have Ms. Mekhla Sinha, the Executive Director of GHRDC, who will now be acting as a moderator for the discussion today. With this, I would request Mekhla to now take over and initiate the discussion.
Thank you, Aradhana. Once again, a very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Ms. Aparna Sinha today. We're really excited to have you today for this webinar. The topic itself is something which is of great relevance to not just women, who are of course aspiring to become leaders in civil services, but also for anyone and everyone who's really preparing for this. And this is something we all really look forward to, in some part of our lives, that okay, can we really pursue civil services? And then most of us decide, okay, this is not for us. But your background really is something very inspirational. And since this is a women's special month that we've dedicated to women leaders and visionaries like you, I think we couldn't have found a better speaker than you to talk about this topic and share some insights, guidance to our student community who will be watching this today. Primarily, these webinars are for educating our student community members. Of course, institutions are also joining, the parents are also joining us today, but mostly it is for the students to help them understand what kind of strategies, mindset, activities they should pursue while they are deciding to pursue this. And coming to my first question to you, you've had a wonderful, very highly acclaimed career, and as a woman, that must have been quite a journey. But let's go back to your childhood, when you were really in school or college days, your academic journey. And at that point of time, if you could take us through, how did this decision-making process really happen? How did it really, happened in your mind? You made that decision, okay, this is what I want to do. And any particular influence in your life that shaped that decision for you? Any routine, any incident, anything that you'd like us to, like us to hear on this? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Meghla. Thank you for your questions, and thank you, Aradhana, for the wonderful introduction that you provided for me. Of course, it's been a long 26 years for me in the government. In fact, more than 26 years, and I'm very grateful to have got this opportunity to work for the government. And in fact, if I could divide my working experience, of more than 26 years into three phases. First 7 to 8 phase, of course, as Aradhana mentioned, it was in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, in different cities of Tamil Nadu. Of course, I was working for the government of India, but there in Tamil Nadu, it was mostly associated with evaluation of centrally sponsored schemes. Very important schemes, like whether it was the public distribution system or the midday meal scheme, the employment guarantee scheme. So those are very, very important schemes. I remember used to, we had a very inspired team of evaluators with me, working with me. And I was covering states of Tamil Nadu, the Union Territory of Pondicherry, and Kerala. So it was a wonderful experience, a different experience. And then, when I came to Delhi in 2008, so those were the 10, 15 years which I spent working in the Department of Commerce, both in Delhi and in Geneva. And the experience which I got as an economic service officer was almost unparalleled. The kind of skills which I developed as a trade and services negotiator, the kind of work that I got to do, both in trying to negotiate bilateral agreements for India as well as multilateral agreements later on in the WTO. I don't think any other service would have given me that opportunity. And of course, now I'm back to, again, another very key economic ministry of the Government of India, which is the Ministry of Finance. And as Aradhana mentioned, of course, I'm now dealing with many of the new tech areas, whether it is cybersecurity, digital economy, and fintech, whether it is financial sector reforms, legislative reforms, crypto sector. So in terms of having experience in the government, at least in the trade and economic spheres, I cannot complain. I have been blessed to get this opportunity to work in different areas, both in the social. I began my career, of course, in the social sectors, and then moved on to very niche areas, whether it's commerce or it's economic policy making now. I think you put a number of questions to me, Meghla.
Yes.
Like
yeah. So going back to your school and college days, if there is something that you'd like to pinpoint as to how this decision-making process really happened for you to join civil services, to pursue this as a career path, any particular influence or anything that you'd like to mention that happened that shaped this decision for you?
Yeah, so of course, see, when you grow up as a child, your immediate family and the members of your immediate family, members of your extended family, all of them have a very, very important role as you grow up. And, many of my uncles are in the civil services, and in they've held very distinguished positions, and many of them in the IAS. I have an older brother who's in the Indian Police Service. So, of course, as a child, what really attracts you is the glamour. But then when you grow up and when you mature, you start understanding. And I was lucky enough to understand very early in my life that, the opportunity which All India services, whether it's the IAS or whether it's the police service, the kind of opportunity that they provide to make a real meaningful difference in the lives of poor people, common people around us. I think that opportunity is you don't get in any other service. It is those were the years when it was growing up in my mind, always in my mind, that okay, that's something which I would want to do. I have always been a very good student, so marks has never been a problem. I've always excelled in when it comes to academics, whether in my throughout my academic career, whether it was in my 10th or in my 12th. Of course, when I joined my 11th and 12th, when I was doing my +2, I had taken pure sciences, which included physics, chemistry, maths, and biology. And I used to get very good scores in biology and physics and maths and chemistry. So, of course, taking the medical entrance was a very strong option for me. In fact, the whole of 11th, and if I remember, you Meghla, you've taken me decades back. because I've celebrated my 50th birthday last year, and you've taken me, I don't know, to the 80s or 90s maybe. So yeah, so those were the during my 11th and 12th. So I was taking the medical entrance was a very, very strong option for me, given my scores, and my teachers used to encourage me, and they used to feel that, okay, we definitely have one doctor from our, because I used to get very good scores, and even if I remember the brilliance coaching and all, my scores used to be very good. But towards the, when I was going to write my 12th exam, and once I was done with my 12th final exams, that was the time when I felt, no, that, I don't want to be a doctor. Let me, all these years, what I've seen in my family and what has been there in my mind, let me go to Delhi. And I took that bold decision of going to Delhi because I've grown up in Bihar. And then I took the decision to move to Delhi. And so when I joined college, it was almost clear for me that I wanted to write the civil services.
How wonderful. Very, very, beautiful journey that you've also taken us through of, how, and I'm sure, yeah, these experiences of having family members around you who are from a similar kind of background, that really helps and shape that influence. But you really heard your inner calling, I would say, from what I can really understand. You took that call and you said, no, I want to go by my inner calling. So coming back to the academic journey again, were there any specific subjects? Because we have a lot of students who are watching this today, so young students who are on the verge of making this decision for themselves. Were there any specific subjects that helped you later in your entrance exams, or anything in particular in your academic journey that you may have done consciously, unconsciously, knowingly, unknowingly, that helped you, later during your preparation for your civil services examination? Or that gave you an edge?
Yeah, no, so this is a very, very useful question that you have put across, Mekhla, because, I understand now that, more than 30, 40 years have passed. I understand that the subject that you do your graduation in, the subject that you pick up, that becomes extremely important. I, remember when I moved to Delhi after my 12th examination, of course, I had very good marks. So, I was spoiled for choice. Whether in fact, I love biology. So there's a cousin sister of mine, and Ritu. I don't know if she's listening to this podcast. So, I went to Delhi. I thought, okay, let me take up botany. I love biology. I'll do botany. And then I wanted to do civil services. But, those were the days of, when the government of India, when we had begun with our liberalization and, privatization and globalization. And she said that, no, Aparna, you shouldn't take up botany, take up economics. It's a very useful subject. And of course, then it came to which college. So again, I was spoiled for choice. I had got into all the good colleges, whether it was Lady Shri Ram or SRCC College, Hindu. But then we finally zeroed down on Hindu and economics. So that's how I started. I would like to thank her for that, because, when I started doing economics, I started loving the subject. And I was lucky to be doing it in a good college. I had very good, bright students around me, and the kind of discussions, the debates that we used to have in class, those were very inspiring. And so that then, you develop an interest in that subject. You go back, if you discuss a particular subject, you go back, read some newspapers, try to watch the news, and that's how your thinking develops, your interest develops. And we used to have very interesting debates and discussions in class. So what the point that I'm trying to put across is that children should do their graduation in the subject that they love. It could be any subject.
Okay.
It could be any subject, because, that then gives you a backup plan. See, when I was writing the civil services, I was aspiring to be an IAS officer, or maybe a police service officer, or maybe a foreign service officer. But that was not to be. Where I landed up ultimately is the Indian Economic Service. And I couldn't have taken this exam had I not done economics. So, and you won't believe, Mekhla, this is a very interesting story I wanted to share with you. So when I qualified in the Indian Economic Service exam, that was in 1999, and we began with our training program at the Institute of Economic Growth in Delhi. And our course director, Professor Goldar, so, he was taking an introduction of all of us. We were just 12 in the batch. Just imagine. So it's a very difficult exam to crack. And the exams used to happen every alternate years, and there were just 12 students. And of course, 50% in the general and 50% in the reserve category. And I had an all India rank of 4. So when Mr. Goldar, he took our introduction, and then I was the only in the batch with just a BA degree, BA Economics Honors. He was surprised. He told me, how did you, he was, at first he asked me that, how is it possible? Because it was economic service was meant to be a specialist service. And he was under the impression that you have to have minimum of a master's to get to write the exam. So I told him, no, sir, it's still, you just need to have a bachelor's degree to write the Indian Economic Service exams. And Mekhla, that was the last year until which bachelor's was the minimum requirement to write the economic service.
Wow.
From next year onwards, master's, you had to have a master's degree in economics or a related field to write the Indian Economic Service exam.
Wow, that was a lucky year, I guess, for you also.
Yeah. So, I had, of course, joined Delhi School of, after my graduation, I had enrolled into Delhi School of Economics. But then my father said that, no, you start preparing for civil services, start writing your exams. So, in fact, again, this is a very interesting episode. I had just completed my BA final exam. That was May of 1997. I'm 94, 97 batch. And then 97, after writing my exams, I went back home to Patna. My father had already filled up the form, the civil services form, the prelims form. He said that in 1 week after this, the next Sunday, you have to go and write your prelims exam. And honestly, Mekhla, I didn't even know the syllabus. I didn't even know what is the exam format. He said, no, it will be a very, very simple exam. You just have to do some multiple choice questions in economics and general studies. You will manage it. So, of course, I didn't prepare for it, but because I was very fresh from college, my economics was very strong. I loved that subject. And of course, growing up, and because I have been a very sincere student. So, of course, my general studies, in that sense, your from your 7th, 8th, 9th, throughout my school career, because I've been a sincere student, so I could handle that part of it also. So I cleared my prelims exams. I also cleared the mains and the interview in 2 attempts, but I could not finally qualify. There are reasons for it. Maybe we'll come to it at some point in your discussions. At that time, we used to have exams. We used to have 2 subject optionals. So I had taken one economics and the other was public administration. So I used to get very good score in economics, but not in public administration. Okay. So that was something which held my performance. It held my performance back. And that's a lesson which I have learned, that if something is not working for you, you need to be flexible. Change it and move on. I remember, my brother-in-law, he told me that if public administration is not working for you, why don't you switch on to geography? And it was not that I was not studying or putting in enough hours when it came to public administration, maybe even more than economics, but I was not scoring. So, but then, he told me that you take geography. Why don't you try geography? So that is one lesson which I carry in my mind, that you should be flexible. If something is not working, you have tried, you have given in your best, then it's time you move on. Try with something else. I could have done that, but of course, I got married and then it was a different story. So, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And I think this is a very important takeaway for our students. First, I think the point that you said, that any subject they take, so they don't have to get very rigid about what subjects they need to choose as far as the civil services preparation is concerned.
Absolutely.
But irrespective,
Absolutely.
Whatever subject they take, they must put their heart and soul, and they should connect with the subject. That's very important. That is number one. And number two, like you were sharing, in your case, you were a extremely academically bright student, someone who was very sincere, doing very well with studies. But even otherwise, what you're sharing is that, if you're not able to fulfill certain criteria in a particular subject, then choose something else, be flexible, don't be, stuck on that point. And I think the third point that you said was very important, is that read newspapers. I think this is something that in today's time, as we're becoming more technology oriented, digital, and bombarded with social media and lots of other platforms, the habit of reading newspapers, okay, forget about physical papers, but even digital news, especially in a young generation, is something that we're struggling with. And I think this is an absolute game changer and a no-brainer for someone who's preparing for civil services.
Absolutely, Mekhla. Absolutely, and as you rightly mentioned, the subject should be the subject of your choice. And, now that I've spent a number of years in Tamil Nadu, I know of a number of children cracking this exam with Tamil literature. With Tamil. So basically, it has to be a subject, which you really love. And irrespective, because civil services gives you the option, I don't know, there are innumerable number of subjects which you can take up as an option in the civil services exam.
Okay.
And of course, the daily habit of if you aspire to be a civil servant, then you should begin the preparations early on in life, and especially during your early college days, when you have a lot of free time.
Right.
So reading newspapers, being aware of the events that are happening within the country and outside is extremely critical. So I would say at least 45 minutes of general reading. It could be any newspaper together with an economic daily, whether it's the Business Standard or the Economic Times or the Mint, any of the economic newspapers. Engage in discussions with your friends, with your family members on the events of global importance. Those are the things which will help you later on, whether you are in the service or you're not in the service. You have to be aware
Right.
of the events that are happening. And I think the if you are on social media, I think it's an excellent platform to enrich yourself. Of course, you can take out some amount of time for your entertainment, pleasure, do some general scrolling, but too much time on social media beyond, it becomes unproductive. And then, yeah. So that you should avoid. So it is best to start preparations early on in life when you're still in your graduation, because then you have a routine set in life. So I would always advise that, you should not completely, like you've completed your graduation or doing your master's and then you're completely out of college and then you're sitting and preparing. So I'm not sure if you want to do that. You could do that, but then it is best to maybe join maybe a coaching institute, or be in touch with children who are writing this exam, so that you have at least a couple of hours during the day when you can engage with them, when discuss with them. If you're going to a coaching institute, of course there are some very good coaching institutes, and of course that also gives you an atmosphere similar to a college, where you can engage in discussions with your teachers, with the teachers who are coaching you, or with other members in the coaching institute. So that gives you an opportunity, but it would be best to start early during your college days, when you're doing your graduation, and not later than when you're doing your master's. So you should start your preparations early. And a couple of things, as we discussed, the reading newspapers, being aware of what's there, what's happening in and around the country. And also, a couple of things which are very important. And, this is again, irrespective of whether you want to be a civil servant or not, to have a hobby in life. And that could be anything, whether it's singing, dancing, whether it's picking up a sport, or it's, yoga, anything that you want, gardening, cooking, anything. So, picking up a hobby again is a very useful activity to be engaged in. And then maybe, 30 minutes of, whatever exercise, some physical activity. Because, it is very important to also pay attention to your health. And, that increases your productivity. Let me just share a personal experience with you, Mekhla. When Aradhana offered, she presented my introduction, it would be amiss if I don't talk about my children. Because, yeah, I've, thanks to God, I've been blessed with two bright, very hardworking children. And both of them have been into professional sports, into professional tennis. My daughter played till her 12th. And then maybe a little bit beyond that, she used to play for her university, for her college. Of course, now she has moved on into academics and she's no longer pursuing tennis. But my younger son, he is still, he's still chasing his dreams to be a tennis player. He works extremely hard. And, I have a lot, even at the age of 50, I learned from my young children. A sport, if you pick up any sport, the biggest thing which it teaches you is to learn to live with failure. Otherwise children, they have a very cushioned background these days, and any failure kind of really rattles you. And what I have learned from my children, and as a parent who was really involved in their growing up days and in, taking them out for tournaments, it is the most difficult thing for a child to lose in front of your parents, to lose in front of your colleagues, in front of your friends. The day you expect to win, that, okay, this is a very easy match, I should be winning this, you lose to a very easy opponent. So just understand, what it does to your confidence. You are down, but then of course, the next day you have to get back to your routine. So picking up a sport again is something very, very useful. It teaches to deal with failures. And, also I remember, when my daughter used to train for a tennis, I used to tell her that, Anu, don't just miss your class, training class today because you have a very important exam tomorrow. She used to say, no, Mama, I can manage both. So she used to come back from her training, and then in those couple of hours, she used to then prepare for her exams. So she would never have time to just, to while around or, waste her time. So I felt that, your productivity as a student increases if you are into some activity, into some hobby, into some outdoor activity, some sport, or you have good relationships around you, whether it is with your friends or with your family, you engage in discussion. So you should be engaged apart from academics, productively engaged.
Beautifully summarized. I don't think there could have been a better response to this question than what you've shared. Because, when we look at the preparation strategy, especially in civil services journey, we are only focusing towards the rigor of the course and how much time and how many hours have we spent on sample papers and going to coaching institutions and sleepless nights and, like really putting away all of your stuff, your social community, your social interactions, and really barring everything in life for you. But I think what you said is so profound, because what you're really saying is that mental and physical well-being is at the foundation of anything that we do in life. And there, apart from a structured environment, like you said, start young, have a very consistent routine, be very updated with what's happening around you. Most importantly, engage with people around you, talk about those topics, discuss it with them. I think it really changes the way they start thinking as a person. That really has a very deep impact. But I think this part where you talked about the fact that they should be involved in some kind of a hobby or in something that, just challenges them in a different way, and it stimulates them, it gives them a sort of freshness to their routine. I think this is a very important point. In fact, we call many speakers from various walks of life and background, and you wouldn't believe, every single time we have gotten this input that physical and mental well-being is the most important aspect that needs to be taken care of before we even jump into any preparation or strategy or any skill set. So what you said is extremely, extremely true and right. My next question to you is about your own journey. You talked about the part about failure, which is again a very important topic for our students to understand. We have so many cases of students who unfortunately go into depression, faced with anxiety and a lot of other issues because they're under a lot of stress and competitive, pressure. And there is this constant fear of failure, that what if I'm failing my parents, I'm failing the society, I'm failing people around you. This is, of course, a very important topic, and I would want you to address the students today on this and maybe share some tips on that, on how they can overcome this. And second, in your own journey, did you face any such instance where you felt like okay, I'm not able to perform to the best of my ability, this is not the path for me, or you felt like this is a failure for you, and how did you really overcome it? So there are two parts to this question. One is your own journey and something that you'd like to share as a tip to the students who are dealing with this right now.
So, Meghla, thanks for your question. And in fact, both the parts are, highly related to each other, and if when we're discussing failure, we should all understand that, what are we discussing today? Failure in getting into the civil services. So this is just one examination. Please understand, when you say failure, it is only, and I have been a failure in that sense. I have not been able to become an Indian, an IAS officer, which I dreamt of. So it is not being able to qualify in a particular exam. It is nothing to then, think of it as a failure in life. So it is very important to distinguish between not qualifying in an exam, which is of course a very dicey exam.
Right.
I know of people in my generation, very bright people who have not been able to make into any of the civil services, and still they have done so well in life.
Right.
And you have instances, equal instances, where you have people who are in the civil services, in fact toppers in the civil services, who have either left the service because they were dissatisfied or disillusioned in the service, or they have not done so well in life despite being in the service. So please understand that, competing in a particular exam has nothing to do with success or failure in life. Life is a long journey. There are different facets in a life. You know, you have your professional life, you have your personal life, your life as a parent, your life as a spouse, your life as a member in the community, your life in your extended family. So there are different aspects of your life. Please understand, children, you know, those students who are listening to us, prepare well for your exam, have an honest assessment. That is why it is very important to be surrounded with positive people, you know, develop relationships in life, you know, good friendships in life. And the college, the friendship that you develop during your college days, I think those friendships stay on forever. So they will be your true mirrors, your reflection. You know, if you're hesitant, in fact, you shouldn't be. You should be very open with your parents, your grandparents, your other members in your extended family, your close friends. Discuss with people. So you will understand that if you are not able to clear this exam, there will be 100 other options available for you. And especially today, you know, Mekhla, this generation is lucky to the kind of opportunity that is available today. It was not available during our time. It was during our time, you know, if you're a good student, either you become an engineer or a doctor, maybe end up being a civil servant. If you don't qualify, maybe end up being a professor or a lecturer in college. The options were extremely limited. But things are very different today. And children, you know, there are few things which children should keep in mind. Of course, there is no substitute to hard work. You have to work, you should work hard, and you should enjoy working hard. And when I say working hard, it doesn't mean that 10, 15 or 18 hours of study, even 5 to 6 hours, you know, but you should have a routine to your life. You should spend reasonable amount of, you know, reasonable amount of study hours. You should be, as we discussed, you should be aware of what's happening within and outside the country. And then, of course, you know, you should, of course, you should have time for recreation. And that is why it's very important to have a hobby that really clears your mind, and some amount of physical activity. I think, you know, these are the things. And then, of course, you know, today is the age of AI. Things are changing very quickly. So we all need to be relevant. And how do you stay relevant, Mekhla? With skilling and upskilling. You know, I joined when my current assignment, the areas of work which I'm handling, extremely technical. And I've had no previous background in handling these subjects. I've had to do a lot of hard work. You know, just imagine if I had been entrusted with the responsibility of looking at crypto policy in the country, cybersecurity, digital economy and fintech, looking at interregulatory issues, looking at legislative reforms and financial sector reforms, the kind of everyday reading, understanding what's happened in the past, what do you learn from events happening in other developed countries? So what are the backup plans? So, you know, you have to keep working hard. It's not that, you know, once you get into a service or once you get into any profession, you know, that's the full stop of learning. You have to keep upskilling, you have to stay relevant, you have to develop new skills, keep working hard. So that's, and stay happy and positive. And that is possible only if you're surrounded with positive people.
Yes, very, very well said. In fact, my next question was about skills and mindset. And you've already answered that in your response right now, because basically what you're saying is stay relevant. We all know technology is changing at a very fast pace, and if we don't keep up with it, we will absolutely stay behind and not be able to, you know, work. So number one, I think one big takeaway for our student community especially is that be a lifelong learner. Never stop
Absolutely.
learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, never to have that attitude that, okay, we've reached this stage, so this is it for us, because this is going to be a constantly evolving environment that we're operating in.
Yeah, all of us, you know, whether you are a career bureaucrat, you know, you have to keep learning. I remember, you know, when I was working for the Department of Commerce, Mekhla, my experiences as a trade and services negotiator, I used to get up, you know, we had a huge amount of schedules to go through. And I used to get up early in the morning, go through all the schedules, understand it was a very technical subject that I was handling, and a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. I used to be a director then, and, you know, the joint secretaries hardly used to go through the schedule, the detailing part of a trade and services agreement. So it involved a lot of reading, lot of hard work, and nobody outside the government would ever believe that a civil servant has to work so hard. almost like a student, almost working like a student. So it's, you, and today, as the Prime Minister often says, we have to, all of us have to keep skilling ourselves. There is no option other than skilling ourselves at every stage in our lives, because things are changing.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said,
Yeah.
skilling, upskilling, being
Yeah.
updated, having a very positive environment to engage with
Yeah.
in terms of family, community, and of course, daily.
Yeah, maybe, you can do take up a course on AI.
Right.
Take up a course on AI, pick up a foreign language, learn a foreign language. So all of them, maybe these are small steps, but of course, they can take you. You don't know what will really help you at what stage in life. Because I got the opportunity to live in Switzerland for a number of years, uh, and I have seen, yoga instructors, many of them coming into Switzerland, and if you have a skill like that, if you want to be a yoga practitioner, pick up a foreign language. You should, you should target, okay, I would, maybe this is a country which is of interest to me, and there are 6-7 languages. If you pick up just one language, if it is French, whether it is Chinese, French, maybe Japanese, Spanish, all of them have huge opportunities. One skill and one foreign language, just imagine.
It will have a huge potential.
Yeah, huge. Because my children are into professional sports, I used to see tennis coaches. If you are good, there's so many players in India. If you're good in the sport, and maybe, you've not been able to excel yourself professionally, and maybe because of your tennis commitments, you've not been able to, really focus on your academics, there are other opportunities. If you're a very good player, just pick up a foreign language together with your tennis skills, and that will again take you far in life.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact,
Yeah.
all of these things that you're talking about are very practical. They're very doable. They're very simple. And it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with just age. It has everything to do with your mind shift and your mindset. To have that curiosity, to have that zeal to learn, to be open to experiences, to learn new things, and to really meet people and just, be open to various experiences and ideas. I think that's what you're essentially saying, that it's a very holistic way of living, learning, and working is what you're
Yeah.
really talking about. And not just having that rhino vision mindset. While that is a very good thing to have, but apart from that, other things also help. Again, I'll take you back to your 20s, and probably this is going to be the last question for today. But if you look back at yourself as a college student, I know you had a brilliant academic background, and everything working out really well for you in terms of making this happen. But if you had to look back at your years in your 20s as a college student, and if you had to advise yourself of what were the things that you could have done differently, if you saw from today's perspective, if you could just tell us what would those few things be? Maybe something that you mentioned could be of great significance to a student who's watching this today.
Very difficult, Mekhla, to, but, a couple of them I think we have discussed here. But one, having a very active college life.
Right. Very
Like,
important.
I was too much focused into academics. I think, and the best way to do that, if you get an opportunity, try to live in the hostel. I know many children, if you're living in and around Delhi, you attend college and then come back to your parents' house. If you get an opportunity, do have a hostel life. I think the friendship and I see my husband, if the friendships that you develop in college, especially as a hosteler, I think that stays on with you. And the learning which happens, with friends, I think that there is no substitute for that. Because, they're all like you. Someone fails, someone succeeds, so you learn from each other's failures and successes. You learn to rejoice in others' successes. If you have failed, there are others to share your sorrows. So it's a different life living as a hosteler. So have a very active college life. Whether it's extracurricular events, try to be an active, not just attending college and your lectures. Of course, that's very important, but all colleges have a number of extracurricular activities. Try to participate in them. And as I mentioned, if you have an opportunity, try to experience the hostel life. That will add a new flavor to your growing up years, and you will learn some unconsciously. You will pick up things, you will learn things which is not otherwise possible. And then, as I mentioned, have a hobby. I was too much into academics, so that kind of relaxes you. I've seen with my children, it really helps having any kind of a hobby or any sport that you can pick up. And of course, the third thing that we discussed early on today, Mekhla, is being flexible in life. Work towards a particular thing, but if it is not working for you, change it. Don't be too rigid in life. Of course, had I written my third attempt with another subject, of course, I didn't write my third attempt in civil services. I'd got into economic service and then got married. But if it's not working for you, I think change and move on. So being flexible, yeah. So these are the things. And of course, as we discussed, at least 30 minutes, if not every day, maybe alternate days. Children should engage in some kind of a physical activity, whether going to the gym, doing a yoga lesson, doing some kind of dancing, anything. It's very important because it is different. Our growing up years were different. We did not have, the option of Swiggy, Zomato, whatever. So, there are, while it's all very good to have a pizza late in the night, but then, you need to have some kind of a physical activity built into your life. And you should not think that, I'm young, I'm still fit. Everyday habit makes a difference. And habits are best built early on in life. When you're in college, when you're young, you will enjoy it. So yeah, these are some of my experiences which I can share.
No, they're very, very beautifully summarized and shared. And I must say that none of them sounded like something which is very impossible because, when we as participants or as people who are external to this look at this kind of a career, we really think of it as something, oh my God, this is not manageable because we can't put in that kind of discipline. But you've really broken this down for us and for all the people who are watching this into very doable goals. And you've told them about things that I think have been known to us, but it's a huge reminder to them to really keep working on this. I must share this point that you talked about today about being flexible and moving on and, not being rigid on a particular thing. We had a speaker once who was in the area of hotel management education. She was quite a known personality in the area of hotel management education. And, as a young female student who graduated from the top-notch hotel management institute in the country, the public institution in the country. She was sitting for her placements. And the company was, if I may say, it was, I think, Taj, or one of the topmost hotel chains at that time. And she wanted to become a chef. And, because she was a female, she was denied the placement for being a chef. And, she was sharing this incident with us during the webinar. And she said, while it was heartbreaking for her at that time, and she was denied that opportunity because that was her dream. Like you said, IAS was your dream, but that didn't materialize. And then you had to sort of change your path. Same thing happened with her and she could not fulfill that. And she said, I channelized my energy and completely changed my path. So she went on to become the first female general manager in hotel and hospitality sector. And then she went to become the first woman professor in hotel and hospitality institutions in India. And, now she's a name that people know of in that sector very, very well. And she's really, curated a space for herself. So she was also saying the same thing to the students that don't get disheartened by, some turns that happens in your life and, some things that you may miss because it may all turn out to be for the better. Like you said, you were doing economics and who knew you would.
Yeah, I wanted to be an IAS officer. And I wanted to take a botany in my graduation, and I ended up taking economics and then landed up into the Indian Economic Service. So, life has different things in store for you. So the basics should be correct. The basics should be in their place. And then, like Lego pieces, things will fall into place. If you have the inputs ready, the output cannot be, completely off the mark.
Yes.
If you couldn't be a doctor, just think that you wanted to be a doctor. For certain reasons, you couldn't become a doctor. Of course, you have studied for it. You have good amount of knowledge. Take up a field like public health, immense opportunities, immense opportunities. So you need to be aware. That is why the subject that you pick up is extremely important. It should be a subject which you're passionate about, which you have real interest. It should not completing your graduation and doing it well. That's important. That subject in itself should not be, very, boring for you or a burden on you. That is important. Take up a subject of interest to you. And then, of course, there are a lot of opportunities. Do some upskilling, take up a course, something, add on to it, as we discussed, some foreign language, something to add on to it, something in digital, pick up a AI related course. Yeah. So, I think the, opportunities, lot of opportunities. And today's India is very different to the India that we were growing up. Meghla, it's in terms of maybe purchasing power parity, we are already the third largest economy in the world. It's a very different India, huge opportunities. And, and I think, with the development that is happening around us, who would have imagined what's happening to Dubai right now? Just 2 weeks back, everyone used to talk about Dubai as the finest place in the world. But things will not, even if the war was to stop, say, in the next few days, things will not remain the same. So this is a world where things are changing very rapidly. There are certain things which are not within your control. These are uncontrollables. Maybe the best of the professionals are there in Dubai, but now they are stuck. Many of them are wanting to move out of Dubai.
Yes,
it's a very difficult, very critical situation for them. So nothing is constant in life. Things are fluid, things are changing. And of course, those are not within our control. What's going to happen tomorrow, nobody knows. So what's in your hand is working hard, having a daily disciplined routine. That okay, if I have maybe a couple of hours, for some kind of relaxation, entertainment, discussion with friends, watching a movie once in a while is absolutely fine. Please indulge in those activities. But then having a daily routine, sticking on to your study hours, even if it is 4 hours, 5 hours, break it up into maybe 2 hours, and then have a break, and then another 2 hours. Do some extra reading. There is no substitute to extra reading and learning. Read a newspaper, pick up a magazine, read that. And then, of course, stay grounded. Don't always stick onto your phone. Engage in discussions with people and not with AI. Whether it's your parents or your grandparents, and even with helpers in your house. You have a lot to learn from everybody around you. Yeah.
Absolutely. What you've shared is so simple and so profound that I really did not expect that this kind of information will come today in today's webinar, because like I said, this is very doable, this is very simple, and yet it is a challenge to do it with consistency and discipline. And what you've shared today is something that I think our student community can take back and do very easily. But today's takeaway for me especially is a holistic way of doing things, and not just doing it in a way that rattles you or stresses you and stuff
that
like
will not take you far, Meghla.
Yes.
It is, and as we discussed, things which were taken to be almost unthinkable, that Dubai, nothing can rattle Dubai. If something unthinkable like that can happen, especially in preparation for a civil services, and especially given the kind of format that you have today, I think it is very different from the format that we have. A lot of emphasis now is on reasoning, is on maths. So I think nobody can be very sure that you will crack the exam. Nobody can be sure. I know of many bright children who have not been able to clear civil services exam, but because their base has been strong, they're all well placed in life today. So that is something which is beyond, working hard is in your control, but not the result. So try to also enjoy the process.
Yes.
The process should not be a burden. So if you enjoy the process, I think, there will be options available.
Yes.
You may not clear a particular exam. Yeah. You may not be able to clear what you thought there will be some other alternative option will come out. So, but the process itself should not be a burden.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And keeping your mind open, I think that is something which is,
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. You have been such an inspirational person, especially, when we were thinking of a woman visionary leader. We couldn't think of a better person to represent you, especially in this month, which we're dedicating to women leaders and visionaries. And your journey is personally a great source of inspiration to me. And I think so many students, both, of course, men, women who are looking at it, even professionals, even young adults who are looking at this webinar today will really learn a lot. I have personally learned a lot of things from you today, and a lot of my own strategies and principles in life have gotten reinforced in today's webinar through your insights and beautiful words that you've shared. I can't really thank you enough. I'll now ask Aradhana to please express our vote of thanks, and then we can close the webinar.
Just one closing remarks from my side, Meghla, if you allow me. Thank you for, first of all, labeling me as an achiever. I'm not sure if, all of us are achievers, Meghla. In our own right, all of us are achievers. And you take up any single woman, I think, that person leaves on a mark. Whether it's on your children, whether you're working hard for your family, for your children, in office, everywhere. So I think all of us, all women, we need to be proud of our achievements, and all of us are achievers in our own different ways. So yeah, just wanted to end up with those words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
This was a wonderful and extremely wonderful and enriching discussion. On behalf of the GHRDC team, I would like to express my appreciation and gratitude to all the participants for taking out time to attend our webinar. Our sincere thanks to our expert. Your presence have been invaluable and undoubtedly has made the webinar an enriching and a very successful one. Thank you so much once again. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
And I must share that we had a house full today for your session. We had more than 100 participants watching this. So you can imagine how wonderful your insights were today and of such great benefit. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Meghla. Thank you, Aradhana. Thank you to the entire GHRDC team, and good luck to all your students. Thank you, and bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye, Meghla. Thank you.